This episode contains distressing themes including suicide and disordered eating. For 24/7 support, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. You'll find some links to more resources in today's episode description.
Welcome to the 82nd Golden Globes, Ozempic's biggest night.
From viral weight loss drug to Hollywood punchline.
What do we think of this Ozempic takeover in Hollywood?
Excuse me.
Do you need
sorry.
some water?
No, I need
Okay.
some Ozempic.
Once lauded as the silver bullet to the stars, Ozempic and other similar medications have slowly but surely crossed into the mainstream, bringing with them new conversations about body image, ethics, health, and accessibility.
There is so much demand. There is demand for this that outstrips anything we've ever seen.
But what does the exploding global popularity of Ozempic mean for young people?
It's definitely fully unlocked something new. I've never had disordered eating despite being a little bit bigger kind of growing up my whole life. I was comfortable and confident in who I was and everything. And yeah, I couldn't really be further from that now.
On the first episode of Investigating Ozempic, we explored the new world of weight loss drugs, GLP-1s like Ozempic, Wegovy and Mounjaro, to understand how they work, what they cost, and the many and varied side effects associated with their use. This time, we'll dive deeper into how these medications are being prescribed, their accessibility, and the world of online and telehealth providers.
It's tempting to say the solution is get rid of these telehealth companies. That's not the solution. Our regular GPs need to do better about weight because so many people are scared of going to the doctor because they're going to get picked on about their weight.
From the Daily Aus, I'm Emma Gillespie, and this is Investigating Ozempic, Part 2. On episode 1 of Investigating Ozempic, we met Mackenzie, the 26-year-old woman who sought out Ozempic for weight management, only to end up in hospital weeks later.
I, for no reason whatsoever, and I hadn't felt like this for a very long time, became suicidal, unable to work.
Mackenzie told us she was prescribed Ozempic via an online provider called Juniper.
When we think of weight loss, calorie counting, intensive exercise, but science suggests they're not a sure way to achieving long-term weight loss. How can Juniper help?
Women following the Juniper program can lose over 11% of their body weight in just 7 months.
Wow.
Juniper's medical weight loss program includes a treatment that works to suppress appetite, overhaul hunger signals, and ultimately help us feel fuller for longer.
While Juniper is the focus of this episode, it's worth noting that it's not the only virtual health provider that prescribes weight loss medications in Australia. Other popular platforms include Mosh, Instant Scripts, and Yuli. But during our investigations for this series, TDA conducted various call-outs and audience polls, from which we received a large volume of responses. A clear pattern emerged amongst that feedback, which put Juniper in a category of its own. For example, TDA didn't ask participants to name providers, but in open prompts, Juniper accounted for an average of 76% of provider mentions. TDA does acknowledge, though, some of the issues and prescribing practices we're going to discuss may be common to other platforms. The provider describes itself as leading the way in medical weight loss, promising customers, specifically women, a holistic approach for lasting results with dietitian-led health coaching, educational resources, health tracking, and unlimited follow-ups for patients with their Juniper doctor. The platform is part of an Aussie health startup called Eucalyptus. The company, which describes itself as a global telehealth provider, also runs dermatology brand software, fertility health service Kin, and 2 men's health clinics, Pilot and Compound. Today, it employs hundreds of people around the world.
Chronic conditions are responsible for 75% of all deaths. The economic strain on the system is at breaking point.
We need to keep people out of hospital, intercepting them upstream from the traditional healthcare system. Eucalyptus is building the future of the preventative healthcare system to make good health last a lifetime.
Patients across all 5 eucalyptus brands can consult with registered clinicians to access prescription medications and treatments. Scripts are issued electronically and filled by eucalyptus partner pharmacies. The company says harnessing the power of technology is at the centre of its mission. Here's Eucalyptus CEO Tim Doyle speaking about the company in a 2023 podcast interview.
The crux of the technology innovation of Eucalyptus is using technology to lower the cost of an interaction with a healthcare professional and then raising the quality of those interactions.
So, is that what Eucalyptus has achieved with Juniper? To understand more, we spoke to several Juniper patients. Many question whether the platform is doing enough to prioritise patient care.
So you complete this online questionnaire, essentially asking you your medical history, etc. And then they get back to you with whether or not you are suitable for the medication. A doctor reviews your information and then says, yep, we're happy to prescribe you this. They've got a pharmacy dispatcher that they work with who sends it all out.
Mackenzie was prescribed Ozempic through Juniper. Between the questionnaire and receiving her first script, she said the whole process took only a couple of days.
And I never spoke to a doctor. They just reviewed my information that I put in a survey kind of format. It did cover, anything relevant to my medical history. So, for example, any medications that I was taking, history of mental health issues, put that all in there.
That included telling Juniper about an antidepressant she'd been taking since her early teens.
I put very, very clearly my exact medication, the dosage, how long I've been diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I was very, very clear on all of that. And they supposedly have a doctor review it and get back to you and say, yeah, we're happy to authorise.
Within weeks, Mackenzie became suicidal.
It was largely really quite unexplained, and I was really, really concerned.
She'd initially decided not to go through her regular GP for Ozempic, but when her mood shifted, Mackenzie visited her doctor in person. He told her there'd been a spike in reports of suicidal ideation linked to Ozempic. Mackenzie's GP also explained that because the medication slows the digestive system, it can negatively impact the way the body absorbs other medications, reducing their effectiveness or, in some cases, blocking them from working at all.
It was incredibly scary because it was obviously depression, but it was not depression I had felt before. And the doctor thinks that's because I was just so intensely coming off medication without being weaned off of it.
It was the first time the 26-year-old had heard about the risk. Her doctor suggested she stop taking Ozempic immediately, go to hospital and contact Juniper.
I essentially sent a message through and said, my doctor's advised me to stop taking this. These were the side effects, etc. And the response was, well, that's not on the listed side effects. It actually shouldn't affect your absorption at all.
Mackenzie said she thoroughly interrogated all the information available to her through Juniper's resources.
I actually didn't say anything to do with mental health. It wasn't mentioned on anything that consumers at least could read that it would possibly reduce the absorption of medication or anything like that. It did reduce the amount of food noise. It did help me lose weight. But then on the flip side, the side effects are so significant that I would never do it again.
Hello, Billy here from TDA. We have just looked at our YouTube analytics and 95% of you who are watching our videos aren't subscribing. If you want to help independent media like us grow, the best way you can do that is by pressing subscribe. Thank you so much, and back to the video.
Juniper disputes any relationship between these medications and an increased risk of mental health-related side effects. Its clinical director, Dr. Matt Vickers, cited specific guidance from the UK health regulator to TDA, which stated in September 2024 that the available data does not support a causal association between GLP-1s and suicide, suicidal ideation, self-injury, and depression. Vickers also pointed to similar findings detailed in a January 2024 update from the US Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, which, quote, did not find an association or clearly demonstrated relationship between GLP-1s and the occurrence of suicidal thoughts or actions. However, an analysis of adverse reactions within the World Health Organization's global database paints a different picture. Findings from an international study published in August 2024 identified a, quote, disproportionate link between suicidal ideation and semaglutides, a type of GLP-1. Considering this, we took a closer look at the research cited by Juniper. The data from the FDA it quoted comes from the preliminary evaluation of an ongoing study. Due to limitations in the scope of reporting and research in this space, the FDA conceded more clinical trials are needed, and that it, quote, cannot definitively rule out that a small risk of suicidal ideation associated with GLP-1s may exist. It said it's continuing to look into the issue and will communicate final conclusions and recommendations after it completes its review. Juniper rejects claims it has failed in a duty of care to patients and maintains there is no major known risk of suicidal ideation as a side effect of the weight loss medications it prescribes. However, Vickers said,
"We have warned patients who have comorbid mental health conditions about the possibility of low mood symptoms or deterioration and to seek support if they are concerned."
Juniper also says it has appointed several specialist staff with mental health training and continues to screen patients extensively for mental health conditions. Advice from the Therapeutic Goods Administration, the TGA, for Mounjaro notes the medication can impact the absorption of certain other specific drugs, including the oral contraceptive pill. But there is no advice cautioning the use of Mounjaro or Wegovy with antidepressants, Juniper said. It's unclear where that leaves patients like Mackenzie, whose lived experience with Ozempic contrasts the clinical evidence informing Juniper's current processes which she argues are not airtight.
I think it would be very easy to be dishonest on. They ask you your height and your weight and do no kind of verification. And I mean, in my case, I was telling the truth, but I think it would be very easy to, omit certain things or change certain numbers without any kind of formal verification of that.
Juniper now requires users to upload photos of themselves, and the provider insists it verifies patient information through multiple methods. But it did not explain to TDA how or if it checks images for signs of manipulation or distortion. Juniper says TGA regulations mandate a minimum BMI and health-related weight condition in order to prescribe someone weight loss medications. Body mass index, or BMI, is a traditional diagnostic tool used to measure obesity. While its relevance and accuracy have been called into question, BMI is still widely used by healthcare providers across the board today. Juniper also told us if a practitioner is uncertain about a patient's true BMI, they have several options available to them, including converting a phone consult to a video call, requesting a patient to have their weight verified at a local GP clinic or pharmacy, or they can decline to prescribe medication to a patient. That being said, Juniper did not provide any further detail to the Daily Aus on the frequency with which these channels are or aren't being utilised. Gabby was prescribed weight loss medication through Juniper when she was 24 years old.
I just kind of became really fixated on how much weight I was losing. So I was weighing myself like 2 or 3 times a day. And it really turned into a bit more of probably an eating disorder.
When Gabby wanted to cancel her subscription, she said Juniper's follow-up marketing made it really hard to walk away. The provider sends regular emails and text messages to its future and former patients with limited time offers and discount codes to encourage them to either start using Juniper or come back to it.
I work in marketing, so I was like, they're really, really playing to your weaknesses here. I still get targeted with their ads insanely. It's all very on the nose for me.
If you're already in a vulnerable spot, Gabby thinks Juniper's approach to marketing could be detrimental to some patients. This includes a Juniper Facebook ad showing what looks like a real conversation between 2 Facebook users. One says,
"Anyone actually saving money since starting medical weight loss? I am spending so much less on food."
In reply, another commenter says,
"My monthly takeaway bill was more than Juniper. I'm saving money."
Given the concerns expressed by Gabby and experts, including national eating disorder charity the Butterfly Foundation, we asked Juniper about this Facebook ad, including whether it was a real conversation between 2 users and why it chose to promote saving money on food as a benefit of weight loss medication. In a statement to TDA, Juniper defended the ad, which it said, quote, depicts an exchange which was inspired by real conversations between members of the Juniper online community. To protect the privacy of those members, it said, we did not use their actual words or names, but instead reflected their expressed sentiments in a paraphrased manner. The platform describes saving money on food as a, quote, genuine benefit experienced by Juniper's patients and a legitimate angle to canvass in Juniper's messaging. The provider's comments did not clarify whether Juniper's marketing strategy is in alignment with the latest harm minimisation advice from eating disorder experts. It raises questions about Juniper's overall marketing strategy, including how it engages with prospective customers. For example, anyone can enter their details in Juniper's initial online screening questionnaire. So to find out more, I took the quiz myself. Now, I'm someone who is in a quote-unquote healthy BMI range, and after completing the questionnaire, I was told, great news, I could lose 10 kilos in 4 months with Juniper's Weight Reset program. With this news, I was shown a personalised graph with my projected weight loss trajectory. To go any further, I'd need to speak to a Juniper practitioner, and that would involve paying a refundable deposit. I left it there for a few weeks, but after several follow-up emails, text messages, promotional offers encouraging me to take the next step, I eventually paid a deposit and booked in a phone consult. From there, a Juniper nurse told me that I was below the provider's minimum BMI threshold and was never actually eligible for treatment. From the graph I was shown to the promotional emails and texts that I received afterwards, eating disorder experts warn this type of promotion can be highly triggering and exacerbate feelings of body dissatisfaction. So, why does Juniper continue to heavily market its weight loss program to patients who are within a healthy BMI range, who it knows it can't prescribe medication to? We asked the provider about this directly. It said,
we accept TDA's concerns in relation to this specific graph and are in the process of amending it so that it does not display an initial weight which falls within a healthy BMI range.
Kate is a healthcare professional and an ex-Juniper employee who shares the concerns raised by people like Gabby and Mackenzie.
A lot of focus was placed on meeting KPIs for prescribing Ozempic and eventually Mounjaro. One nurse practitioner was prescribing one patient Ozempic or Mounjaro every 30 seconds within their designated shift, which is hardly enough time to ask the required screening questions. It felt misaligned with providing quality patient care in a safe way.
Kate says as Ozempic became more talked about in media and pop culture, Juniper customers started coming forward with concerns about side effects.
We had a lot of scared customers reaching out and information fed back to them by staff that I feel was deceptive or not the whole truth. We also had dietitians encouraging calorie counting, which concerned me greatly.
Staff concerns were dismissed, she claims. Kate also alleges workers were discouraged from sharing information with community GPs about patients they may have had long-standing relationships with, and says the company cut ties with external healthcare providers who voiced their concerns about patient care.
A plethora of issues that were coming through weren't being addressed.
Kate claims staff were inundated with daily reports from patients about mental health concerns and eating disorders, the scale of which was downplayed by Eucalyptus, the company behind Juniper, she says. However, Eucalyptus called this suggestion wildly inaccurate and said it receives an average of 41 mental health-related patient interactions per week. It argues all clinicians at Eucalyptus are well equipped to handle all patient concerns. In many instances, Kate said high-risk cases were being handled by pharmacists and general nurse practitioners who didn't have the training and qualifications to do so. The company has defended the capabilities of its staff to TDA, although current practices at Eucalyptus might not fully reflect the processes that were in place when Kate worked there. Juniper's clinical director, Dr. Matt Vickers, said,
nurse practitioners are specialist nurses who have typically practiced for at least 10 to 15 years.
These providers are accredited by the Nursing Board of Australia, which permits them to prescribe any medications which fall within their scope of practice. Dr. Vickers said Eucalyptus nurse practitioners are required to undertake additional training when they're hired to ensure they are adequately experienced in weight management prescribing. During her time at Eucalyptus, Kate also alleges that vulnerable patients did not receive prompt follow-up care.
We had one concerned mother email us about her son as he had a history of suicidal ideation and he'd been able to purchase multiple quantities of Ozempic somehow through our service. She was worried he would overdose on his medication. I was told not to engage with the mother as she was not a customer and instead reach out to the son.
She described instances where staff were discouraged from escalating an issue to emergency services, or an instance when staff reached out to a patient on their personal phone to conduct an after-hours welfare check themselves.
I was given very little assistance or support to deal with these situations in a safe way.
Dr. Matt Vickers strongly rejects these allegations and said the company has clear internal benchmarks which are regularly audited to ensure prompt follow-up for all patient concerns, with the most serious inquiries requiring the fastest response. On the last episode, we spoke about GLP-1s Wegovy and Mounjaro, which were developed in response to a global shortage of Ozempic, a medication originally developed for type 2 diabetes management. During that shortage, Kate claims Juniper stockpiled Ozempic supplies. Kate says,
"This was openly bragged about at company-wide meetings."
At the time, the Therapeutic Goods Administration advised prescribers not to start new patients on Ozempic, with supplies to be conserved for type 2 diabetes patients who have no other treatment options. According to the latest TGA update, Ozempic supply issues are expected to continue throughout 2025. Juniper rejects claims it hoarded Ozempic supplies and said the company
did not stockpile semaglutide but worked with a network of pharmacies to maintain continuity of care for its patients.
Kate's Ozempic stockpiling allegation relates to a time before the advent of popular alternatives like Wegovy and Mounjaro. Australian Medical Association Chair of Public Health, Dr. Michael Bonning, says these newer GLP-1s have eased some of the pressure on supply chains and doctors.
Prescribers have felt a bit more comfortable using that for making sure that they're not ending up with people or diabetics who are missing out on what is a real blockbuster drug for diabetes.
While the Ozempic shortage presented challenges for prescribers everywhere, Juniper's treatment program now centres around Wegovy and Mounjaro, treatments it says its partner pharmacies currently have in stock and available. Next time on the final instalment of Investigating Ozempic. How has the popularisation of weight loss medication impacted the way young people think about themselves, health and body image?
A lot of people look up to these celebrities, especially young women. I think that means that a lot of young people will think that when you're skinny, you're healthy.
How have these medications shifted conversations around obesity treatments and diet culture?
If you take this drug, you are frowned on for cheating and stealing it from diabetics. If you don't take this drug, then you're frowned on for not taking the options that are available. So I feel like it's a situation where you can't win.
If this episode raised any issues or concerns for you, help is available 24/7 through Lifeline on 13 11 14. For eating disorder support, you can contact the Butterfly Foundation on 1-800-ED-HOPE. That's 1-800-33-4673.